Hey guys, I'm Charles Neal. You know, in November I'll be 57 years old. I started finishing when I was 13. That's a long time. And, you know, ironically, every now and then a blind bird gets a worm. Just happens. I was doing some other stuff and working on this and working on that. And you've been there and done it. You know, you start doing one thing and next thing you know, A leads to B, and next thing you know, you're down at X, Y, and Z. Just happens that way. And what I came up with is a blotch control. Now, blotching, when you're, what is blotching? Well, let's just take a look. What is it? This is a piece of curly cherry. Just a little oil stain. I'm not going to be particular here. That ain't real bad, but the technical word for it, so you understand, is blotching in a technical sense is taking beautiful wood and making it, bleh. It's what it is. Blotching is where, within the confines of certain woods, you have a hard grain and a soft grain, all in the same piece of wood. When you stain it or dye it, the soft part of the wood absorbs more than the hard part, and it blotches, meaning the color's uneven, it just looks awful. This is oil. Now, if you're using an oil stain, everybody knows to make sure you dispose of these rags properly, because they can cause a spontaneous combustion. We'll get that in a minute. Just want to let you know. Here's another one. This what I've got here is a water-based dye. Dyes blotch worse than stains. Why? Because they're thinner and the wood is able to soak up more. Pretty simple. Wipe it on, wipe it off. This is just the dye. I'm going to wipe it off real good so we make sure you not. That's blotching. And that's not even serious, but that's blotching. Just, you know, the colors are all, yeah. Anyway, so I'm playing around. And so I get to playing more and more and more, and then a lot, and then a whole bunch, and then a really whole bunch. Basically, what my blotch control is a high adhesive. It's basically a PVA adhesive that I modified with some resins and some a little bit of this and that. And when I got to play, the more I played with it, I couldn't believe it. There's a lot of products out here for blotch control. They're called pre-stain conditioners and whatever. Most of them are oil-based. Oil-based, what it does is when you put it on, the wood soaks in, it soaks into the wood. And you'll notice most of them will tell you not to leave it more than an hour or two and then put your stain over it. The reason for it is it's what a blotch control has to do is it has to equalize the surface. You have to take that soft grain and make it the same as that hard grain in order for the stain to go on evenly. The problem with the oils are that if you wait too long, then they don't work. The biggest issue with them is color retention, meaning they just, once they're on there, they seal the wood and they don't want to take any color. And the truth of the matter is, they blotch themselves because they're oil. Most of your oils have some amber to it. And that amber dye or that amber color of that oil will blotch it. Let's take a look at it. Okay, this is an oil-based pre-stain. It's kind of light colored. But if you will watch, I hope you can see this on camera. It's doing the exact same thing. It has very little color, but it has color. So what's it doing? Well, it's kind of blotching on its own. A lot of people use thin coats of oil. This is cherry. A lot of people like oil finishes on cherry. I do too, they're pretty. Your oils are not clear, so what they do is they also impart some blotching. Are we able to pick that up? Okay. Now we've just let these two pieces of cherry sit right here just for a little bit. Kind of let the dye go ahead and migrate in and get full strength. This is an oil stain. Let's turn it over. This is treated with my blotch control. The first thing you notice is it's clear. There's no blotch showing. But there is figure showing. You look in here, you see some of the little curl and the curly part and some figure going on there. A little bit here, but you notice we got some sapwood. Sapwood, particularly on cherry, is always much softer, so it blotches bad. Always does. Let's see what the blotch control does on the same piece of wood. Same water-based dye. Now for those of you who've never used a dye, dyes are much, like I said, they're thinner and they're much stronger. So a water-based dye is going to blotch. What do you think? Notice the sapwood. Here's what's happening. What my product does is my product is water-based. So when it dries clear. Could you put an oil over it? Yeah, if you want to. But it does the same thing. Any blotch control has to inhibit absorption. It has to for it to work. Now, that said, what my product does is because it's a water base, water-based products will bite into it. So the product itself will take a color. That's very unique. That's why you see the even color and you saw the sapwood disappear. Look at this side. Look at this side. But I want you to pick up on something here. Can you see right down here on this bottom? Now dye is dry dull, so we don't have a sheen. right here, the figure's still there. We didn't lose it. And it's a die. This is going to be crystal clear. Okay? Listen, now this hasn't, you're watching this in real time, and I'm not telling you to do, matter of fact, I'm going to tell you, don't do this. You don't want to apply a stain or a finish over this die this fast. I want to get a little sheen. I want you to see what I'm talking about with the figure. So this is just a little bit of oil to enhance the sheen. Because I want you to see how clean and crisp the grain is. It's not painted, it's not modeled. And you see the figure. It's just not black. Let's do the same thing the other side. Now some of you are going to, hey, listen, I've used half-pound cuts, I've used shellac, I've used the oils, I've used about everything out there. See the difference? And if you got something that's working good for you, stay with it, by all means. Y'all want to see that sapwood thing again? Watch it. I got to be careful. I got a little bit of oil on that. Did you get it? Now that's cool. Again, the thing that's happening is the product is taking some of the stain. It's biting in. So our color retention is far better. The way we apply it, I'll show you in a minute. We put on 2 coats. You can spray it, you can brush it, or you can wipe it. But you want to take a wet rag and wipe it back. Wipe it back means taking a wet rag and wiping it down. I picked this piece of wood because I want to show you this has got some really cool figure going on, and I wanted you to see how the figure is still showing through, the color's clean and crisp because we're using a dye, but yet it's not blotched. As compared to, got it? Okay, so let's play a minute. This is a piece of white pine. How many people out here tried to stain or dye white pine? How many had success at it? And if you know anything about this, to take a dye and put on white pine, well, it don't usually work too good. I want you to pay real quick attention. You see the gray stain up here in the top of it? Where it's got the gray. Now, indicative with any dye, when I put the first coat on and let it sit there just a minute longer, it's going to get a little darker. But that's okay. Here it is dry. No blotch. A knot, gray stain, sapwood, heart, sapwood. You know, one of the ways to put a dye on, the best way I've ever found to put a dye on is just get it wet, good and wet, and let it just sit there a minute. Not real long. Now I'm showing you this. We've got color, but you notice the sapwood. See the sapwood? How it's trying to want to blotch? When you do a test piece, this would tell you you need to do another coat. Here's a piece of maple. Maple's bad about blotching. Now again, I'm using a dye, a water-based dye. Alcohol, be about the same thing. What I'm showing you is the blotch control that you're getting. It's not eliminating your figure. It's actually letting the figure show through, but the figure's not going black. Here's another interesting one. This is a piece of exterior grade yellow pine plywood. Now, in case you don't know, and I feel sure a lot of you do, you can't hardly paint this stuff. This is one of the nastiest things in the world to try to do anything with. I did half of it with blotch control, and the other half I didn't. See what we got. I can't see it. Y'all tell me. What do you think? I got one more I'm going to show you. Here's one, if you're not careful on a crotch, whether it be walnut, cherry, any of them, if you put a stain or dye, yeah, and even a lot of times if you just put an oil on it, they will just go black. Because basically what the crotch is kind of like a knot, it's like an end grain. This is a light brown water-based dye. I didn't lose any of that. I didn't lose any of the definition in it whatsoever. Because it's all equal. This side has not been prepped. And just for you, because show you the difference. See how the crotch is turning black? And some are worse than others. That's the way it works. That's blotching. Now let's talk a little bit about how you apply this stuff. Again, it's a water base. When you brush it, spray it, do anything, and I told you in the onset, I want you to wipe it back. What does that mean? What that means is I want you to apply it wet. Number one, stir it well, make sure it's well mixed. Apply it wet. It's just like water, but it's not. Apply it very wet. And I mean, I don't mean drown it, but I want to see it, I want it wet. You want to see it wet. Simply wipe it back, allow it to dry. As with any water-based anything, it's going to raise the grain some. Let it dry. Once it's dry, and that's usually At 70 degrees, that's about an hour. If you've got a nice warm room, go a little faster. If it's cold and or you got high humidity or it's cold, be a little slower. The way to know when it's ready is if you feel it and it feels dry, feels hard. Take you a piece of 320 sandpaper and scuff it. Scuff it means just lightly go over it. Make sure it's smooth. You should have a smooth surface now. Because you've already raised the grain, the blotch control has hardened the fiber, you sand it, it comes back smooth. Then apply another coat. Now I'm going to emphasize to you to test. You get into super absorbent woods. We were doing some quarter sawn sycamore that had some sapwood in it. 2 coats, then I applied a good wet coat. I'll leave it dry. The key to this is that it has to be dry. What we found is 6 hours is pretty much, it does okay. If you leave it dry overnight, even better. If you leave it dry 2 or 3 days, not going to hurt a thing. And then you see the end result. Coverage on it, again, that depends upon how absorbent the wood is. You know, if you're doing an aspen, aspen is going to absorb more than a cherry or a maple. Average on it, as close as we can determine, is about 50 square feet. Now, remember what I just told you when we was talking about the quarter sawn sycamore. Some woods may require 3 coats. You've got to do a test. And because we've tested it under every stain and dye I can think of. But make sure you do a test on whatever you're using. There's so many formulas out here. You know, do a test. All I can tell you is in my world, and after this many years of fighting blotch, I don't know of anything better. Just how it is. I wrote on the can, said it's a miracle in a can, and about the way I see it. Give it a try. Catch you later.